I'm Elex Michaelson. This week on The Issue Is, Frank Luntz, one of the best-known pollsters in American history, is here with the results of a new focus group. Then, Congresswoman Katie Porter joins us to discuss her U.S. Senate race. The Issue Is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
Raise your hand if you're still not decided about who you're going to vote for in 2024.
I feel that both candidates are more so running to prove a point to themselves, less so than actually do something for me. And I'm not.
A recent focus group conducted by Frank Luntz for Straight Arrow News. Luntz has conducted more focus groups than just about anybody else over the years, kind of pioneered it on TV. He has appeared on every major network and been a consultant to the top politicians and business leaders in the entire country. Frank Luntz's specialty is understanding how word choice often connects to our emotions and then our decision-making. He is credited with popularizing the phrase climate change instead of global warming, death tax instead of estate tax, energy exploration instead of oil drilling, border security instead of border wall. Frank Luntz, welcome to The Issue Is for the very first time.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
E-L-E-X.
Yes.
Why?
Because we took the E for my great-grandmother Ethel, and so we honor her with that.
That's cool.
So a shout out to Ethel.
Do your viewers know this?
Some of them do, but now more of them do, thanks to you.
This is, by the way, this is what I do, is I ask questions.
Yeah, and as do I. So let's start off with this question, the big question. What is the state of the presidential race right now? Who's ahead?
I don't know what language you're allowed to use because this is broadcast.
Go for it.
I have to be very careful. I would call it a show.
Okay.
And you can edit that if you need to. And that's the only definition. The candidates have gone low already, both of them. Trump lower. There's not really a focus on issues. It's much more on retribution, on criticism. And in these focus groups that you show me doing, there's a level of frustration that comes out within 5 minutes.
And so what do they want to hear? What would get them over the line towards Biden or Trump? Because I know you've suggested that that Biden right now, in your words, is losing the election, not that Trump is winning the election.
How do you, if I were Joe Biden, I'd be embarrassed. He's losing to a man who's been indicted 91 times, 85 of those still exist, and Joe Biden is losing to this guy. The economy is better. Inflation is down. Employment is up. Arguably, these are relatively good times for America, and he's losing to Donald Trump. What does that say to you?
What does it say?
Good. I like that. I will do this throughout this entire interview because you don't understand my job.
It says to me that most Americans think that Joe Biden is too old, and they're wondering whether he's in control or not, and they want somebody who's stronger, right? Isn't that what the focus group is saying?
That's exactly what they're saying, and they're frustrated that we have these two candidates. 70% of Americans don't want a rematch of 2020, and yet that's exactly what they're about to get.
So that's what the focus group is telling you. You're the word choice guy. You give candidates advice on how to talk about things. So let's first go to the Trump campaign. This week, we saw Donald Trump out selling Bibles. His new phrase is "Make America Pray Again," offering it for $60. You can get a Bible, a Constitution.
Selling Bibles? Do you have no shame? And I know that there are Trump people who are watching this, and they're screaming at the TV right now.
Right, they are.
It's not appropriate. Can we agree that there's a way that a president should act? I'm going to give you 2 words for both campaigns.
Yes.
The first one is enough, in all caps with an exclamation point. Enough with the failures, enough with the chaos at the border, enough with inflation, enough with partisanship, enough with negativity. The public is saying enough of all of this. And in that word, Trump benefits because enough is hostile to the status quo. The other one they're saying is results. We're tired of you talking to each other, yelling at each other, the two parties not getting along with each other, just fighting with each other. Enough of the status quo. We want a fundamental change.
So that would be the word you would say to Trump. So use the word enough. That's your advice to him.
Yes, enough of immigration chaos.
And what's the word for Joe Biden? You're giving campaign advice to them. How should he be speaking?
It's about results. It's about addressing the threat of China. It's about engaging in creating stability in the economy. He's getting no credit at all.
None.
For an economy that is relatively good. And that's because his own communication has failed.
It was pretty stunning watching your focus group talk about Kamala Harris, the vice president.
They don't like
your
her.
recent one, basically every single person said that she was a negative on the ticket and used pretty strong language against her. What do you make of that, and how should she change, assuming that she is going to stay on the ticket, and how can she be helpful?
She's staying on the ticket because Joe Biden, if nothing else, is loyal. He doesn't dump people, and that's something to be admired in politics today. They don't believe she knows her brief. They don't believe she's put in the homework. He sent her to handle immigration. How long does it take for her to get to the border? And she doesn't acknowledge when she made a mistake. She should have gone immediately. That's what voters want you to do. They want to see you addressing the challenge. They want you to get your hands dirty, and that's not what she did. And then she laughs it off. How do you change that? How do you prove to voters that you're serious when you think that these tough questions are worthy of laughter? I don't know how to fix that.
Meanwhile, there was a new VP candidate this week, Robert F. Kennedy, announcing that Nicole Shanahan is going to be his pick. She is a California tech entrepreneur and attorney. They had this big announcement in Oakland, which was her hometown. She's the ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin, so she's got some money. Here's some of her announcement speech.
So these are two of my political convictions I hold today: to serve peace and to help those in poverty.
What do you make of her selection and of the Kennedy campaign?
I make something significant of the Kennedy campaign because he's the vehicle for those who've had enough of the two-party system. And he could end up in the debates. She's unknown, which is why you have to mention who she used to be married to, because that's, unfortunately for her, that's her status right now. She's a good speaker. She breaks a number of glass ceilings. I don't believe that Kennedy has a path to the presidency. I do believe, not a spoiler, I believe that he has the opportunity to be a significant voice. I have issues with him frankly, on science and on vaccines, but I respect his point of view, and I respect the 10% of Americans that are supporting him. And I'll warn you here, if he does get the 15% and gets into the debates, he's going to hurt Biden more than he hurts Trump. And this is why the Democrats are, in an organizational way, spending millions of dollars to keep Kennedy off the ticket. And I say this to any viewer, I don't know where the camera is right now.
You got a bunch of them.
It's right here.
Okay.
The idea that the Democratic National Committee is spending money to prevent a legitimate campaign and candidate, to keep them off the ballot, that is the most anti-democratic thing I've heard in 2024. I know that they're doing it. Understand the reason why they're doing it. It is not defensible. When our democracy is under threat, when people are they're already concerned that we've lost the rule of law, that we've lost support, that we don't believe in the credibility of elections right now. Yeah. To actively keep someone off the ballot who's getting 10% support, that is indefensible. And they're going to pay for it.
Up next, why Frank Luntz thinks Gavin Newsom would be a better presidential candidate than Joe Biden. Plus, he plays personal issues. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking to longtime pollster and political strategist Frank Luntz. Let's talk for a minute about California, because you live here.
No. I visit here.
You visit here. Well, you have a house here.
Yes, but my heart and my wallet and my driver's license and my doctors are all in Nevada. Okay. I'm one of the people who left. You can't afford to live here anymore. By the way, you'll be joining me.
That seems, well, I do host the California show, so that's harder to do from Nevada. But let's talk about our governor.
You'll find a way.
Our governor, Gavin Newsom. What do you make of him? And do you criticize him for what you just said?
The truth is, if Gavin Newsom were the candidate against Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom would be the next president.
You think he's a better candidate than Joe Biden?
He's a much better candidate. He's already delivered the message against Ron DeSantis. The governor of Florida's got a really good record, but he's not a good communicator. Gavin Newsom is a great communicator. And by the way, based on where the state is now, I am looking towards the next governor's election. And Gavin can't run again. Mark my words, this state is going to consider a business expert, someone who's brought jobs, someone who understands what it is to make a payroll, someone who's got a vision of the state actually working, not politically, not ideologically, but in a common sense way. Watch.
Did Rick Caruso ask you to say that?
No, he did not. And the fact that Rick Caruso, that's a good response.
Yeah.
If Rick Caruso can't get elected mayor when this city has the problems that it has, I would find it very difficult to imagine him. But
the city is more blue than the state is, and maybe a little bit more moderate might work in the state where there's more red areas.
Which is why a moderate businessman who has a record of accomplishment, a track record, a meaningful, measurable track record of creating success where there was none, that's what I'll be watching for. But Gavin, could you imagine Gavin Newsom and Donald Trump in the debates?
It would be the highest rated debates we've ever had.
People would tune in. They would have drinking games. We would, the local bars here would be absolutely packed.
Gavin is missing his moment, though. That there are folks that feel like in politics you got to go when it's your moment, and that 4 years from now, that moment may pass.
It may be the case. I know that nobody wanted to challenge Joe Biden. This is different than 1968. Again, I have to use a historic comparison. Eugene McCarthy challenged the sitting president, did really well in New Hampshire, and then Bobby Kennedy, the father, came in, and Johnson knew he had to get out.
Right.
Yes.
Bobby Kennedy probably would have been the president if he...
I believe that, and I think that that's one of the reasons why the presidential race is so significant for Bobby Kennedy, the son, to be running. And Gavin's got to be looking at this going, if I were there, because the only person who's got a smile as good as you, sir, is Gavin Newsom.
And strangely enough,
he looks the same.
Strangely enough, Gavin Newsom's ultimate role model in life is Bobby Kennedy, the father, who he keeps a picture of on his desk.
Oh, I'm going to surprise you.
Yeah.
Bobby Kennedy is my role model, too.
Yeah.
This guy understood pain and understood suffering and tried to alleviate it. And still, his line, some men see things as they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not. To this day, that is the most beautiful statement about what could be in America and what could be in California.
We do something on this show called Personal Issues, which is 30-second rapid fire, your cultural favorites to get to know you a little bit better. So this is the first thing that comes to mind.
You didn't warn me of this.
I know. Well, it's more fun when you don't have a warning.
This is.
Yeah.
Hey, do something, guys. This is not fair. I can handle all those.
If you watch the show more often, we do this every time. So
I don't live here.
I know.
I told you.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Have some fun. First thing that comes to mind. If you want to pass, pass. What is your favorite TV show?
Entourage, Doug Ellen. Yeah. I can watch that show. I'm not going to give you
favorite book.
Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs.
Great book. Favorite president?
Teddy Roosevelt's personality and Ronald Reagan's policies.
Favorite band or artist?
Beatles.
What's your favorite way to relax?
Watching Entourage while listening to the Beatles and thinking about Ronald Reagan and Teddy Roosevelt.
And Vice did this profile a few years back of your house here in Los Angeles. You have this amazing house with
Are you going to get me robbed here?
No, I'm not saying where it is. I'm just, Los Angeles is a big place.
I don't want people tracking me down. By the way, that's part of the problem here.
Yeah.
I have to be afraid. I see you're showing pictures of my Oval Office.
Yeah.
We should have done this interview there.
Yeah.
Yes, that is an exact replica. I owe Bill Clinton because his library shut down their Oval Office for 45 minutes to take exact measurements. Wow. And this is 78% size.
That's amazing.
So I do take it seriously, but the idea that you and I can have a normal conversation, I can even talk about the house, and I have to be afraid that someone's going to come and try to burn it down or attack it. We attack people at their homes now.
Yeah.
We scream at their children. We've become so uncivil and so mean to each other. And I'm trying, through whatever time I have left, to try to be an honest broker, to try to tell the truth and the whole truth, and to try to find ways to bridge the gap, because we're not doing it right now.
Well, thank you for being here. And we like to play music on this show. And I know you were a consultant on my favorite TV show of all time, The West Wing, which we got to do another episode, just talk about West Wing stories. Up next here on The Issue is we've got Katie Porter on her Senate candidacy. But we go to break with music from the West Wing. Frank Luntz, thanks for being here.
Thank you for doing this.
Great stuff.
Appreciate it.
And yes, we would be happy to do the show in your Oval Office.
We should do that.
That would be really fun. Yeah.
I wish I had chosen a different word, because what happened with the controversy was it took away from two really important truths. One, our California election officials do a terrific job. The second truth that is really important that got lost in all of that is that big money does influence our elections.
That is Katie Porter on Pod Save America talking about her post-election comments that her U.S. Senate election was rigged by big money interests. Congresswoman Katie Porter joins us right now. Congresswoman, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Nice to be back.
Good to see you. You lost the race by about 15%, which is a bigger margin than some of the polls had predicted. Why do you think you lost? What do you think the message voters were sending?
Well, we were outspent 3-1, and I think that arose, and it was all spending in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the election. So when you have negative ads against you, and I was the only candidate in this race who faced actual negative ads, I think that matters at the margin. I also think turnout was more conservative, more white and older than it has been in some of our California elections. And so, look, it was a tough race. It was a good race. I'm glad that I had the chance to talk about issues like housing and consumer protection, environmental issues, and getting money out of politics. All of those issues stay so relevant to California in this coming election in November and in the years to come.
We spoke with Adam Schiff the day after the election, and he told us at that point you had not called him to concede. I know you have now called him and had reached out to him. Just to be totally clear, are you fully endorsing Adam Schiff for Senate?
I think he's the right choice for Californians. I called Adam, I think it was Thursday after the election, and we had a pleasant exchange. He's my colleague. He continues to be my colleague in the House of Representatives, as does Barbara Lee. And Adam and Steve Garvey will have a race going all the way through November. I hope very much that Adam will come and campaign here in Orange County. So while I'm not on the ballot in November, I'm very, very involved already in trying to help other candidates win, including House candidates across California. So I'm sure I'll get a chance to see Adam on the campaign trail and continue to work with him.
So that's yes, you're endorsing Adam Schiff.
Yes, of course. I strongly support him. I think he's the right choice for Californians.
So you have until January to continue as a member of the House. And there was an interesting moment recently in the House Oversight Committee when you made a point and then Republican James Comer, the chair of the Oversight Committee, not exactly Democrats' favorite person of all time, said something nice about you. Let's take a look.
And we can pass legislation to create badly needed ethics guardrails. That would be real work, not a real circus. I yield back.
Before I recognize Mr. Timmons, Ms. Porter, I think you are sincere, and I look forward to working with you on that legislation.
What did it mean for you to have this Republican chairman of the Oversight Committee say that about you?
Well, I think it's a mark of the respect that my colleagues have for the way that I engage in hearings, that I'm really always thinking about the American people. They're the audience, and that there's a real hunger for cleaning up Washington amongst the American people. And I was grateful that my Republican colleague recognized that, to come off a tough race like this, go right back to Washington and have colleagues on both sides of the aisle compliment you for your work and your passion. It meant a lot to me.
What does that work look like? What is realistic in the final months of an election year with such a divided House and so few days of actually legislating?
For example, a ban on Congress members trading stock, something that I have never done.
Do you think there are the votes to pass a congressional stock ban before the next Congress comes in?
I think there would be the votes if we would put it on the floor. I think very, very few Congress members would be willing to vote against that, given that 90% of Americans support it. Leadership hasn't put this to a vote. And that's an example of the kind of subtle influence that gets exerted within the Capitol that can lead to outcomes.
We know before this, you were a professor at UCI. You live right by UCI. Will you become a law professor again next year?
Well, I've been on unpaid leave during my government service, and so I do plan to return to teaching, help train the next generation of lawmakers, work on issues that are important to me, like consumer protection that I worked on in Congress, and so that is the plan at this point. But most of all, I'm enjoying spending a little bit more time with my family, and I'm making a trip up to Sacramento this week. Not for work, but just to go and visit some of the amazing things like the Railroad Museum and other things in Sacramento that as many times as I've been there as Katie Porter politician, I'm so excited to be going to visit our state's capital as Katie Porter mom and tourist.
Okay, there's no way you bring up visiting Sacramento without then me asking any interest in being governor, being attorney general. Have you thought about that sort of thing?
I really haven't thought about that, but I'm going to stay committed to public life. Look, before my fight didn't start in Washington. My fight for a more fair economy, to make sure that families got a fair shake, to make sure that consumers were treated right, that homeowners had a chance to buy homes. That's been my entire career. Washington was where I did that work when I quit doing it in the classroom. But those same core issues are going to continue to interest me, and I'm going to continue to be a powerful voice for California families going forward.
Well, thank you for all of the conversations throughout the campaign here on The Issue Is and our debate and other things. It was a real privilege and pleasure talking with you throughout the process, and look forward to talking to you more as we go forward.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right, we end with something fun. Last time you were on, you suggested that Taylor Swift's Bejeweled was your favorite karaoke song. So we go to break with your top choice. Thank you so much for watching The Issue Is. We end with my personal moment of zen, the return of baseball. There are few things more American than opening day. So here is Josh Groban with the national anthem at Dodger Stadium and a special flyover. And how great do those players look standing next to each other? We'll see you next week.